The brass key trembled in Ethan's hand, its familiar ridges biting into his palm as he stood frozen in the doorway of the house his father had left him. It was more than a key. It was a tether to his past, to the man who'd raised him alone, to the creaky floors and chipped paint of a home that held every memory of his childhood. But tonight it felt foreign, heavy with a truth he wasn't ready to face. The lock had been changed. His key, the one his father had pressed into his hand on his deathbed, no longer fit. Ethan's breath caught, a sharp stab of betrayal slicing through him. His wife, Lila, had been distant for months, her smiles thin, her excuses flimsy. But this was a violation of something sacred, a line he hadn't imagined she'd cross. The house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was his father's legacy, the one thing Ethan had fought to keep after the bank tried to claw it back. And now Lila's stepfather, Carl, a man who strutted through their lives like he owned everything, had decided to stake his claim. Ethan stepped back, the porch creaking under his boots. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp leaves and the faint tang of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. His pulse thudded in his ears as he dialed Lila's number. It rang twice before she picked up. "Ethan? Where are you?" Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it, like she was bracing for something. "I'm at the house," he said, his tone low, controlled, though his chest felt like it was caving in. "Why doesn't my key work?" Silence stretched across the line, thick and suffocating. "What do you mean?" she finally said, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "The lock's been changed, Lila. Did you know about this?" He didn't want to ask the next question. Didn't want to hear the answer he already suspected. Did Carl do this? Another pause, longer this time. "Ethan, it's not what you think. Not what I think." His voice cracked, the hurt spilling out before he could stop it. "This is my house, Lila. My dad's house. You know what it means to me. How could you let him touch it? I didn't look, just come home, okay? We'll talk about it." Her words were rushed, pleading, but they felt hollow like a script she'd rehearsed. Ethan hung up without responding. He shoved the useless key into his pocket and leaned against the porch railing, staring at the peeling paint on the front door. His father had painted it blue the summer Ethan turned 16, the two of them laughing as they splattered each other with paint. That door was a promise, a piece of his father that still stood. Now it felt like a stranger's. The drive back to their apartment was a blur, the city lights streaking past like tears he refused to shed. Lila was waiting in the living room when he walked in, her arms crossed, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked small, fragile, but Ethan knew better than to trust the vulnerability in her eyes. Carl was there too, sprawled on the couch like he owned the place, his broad shoulders and smug grin filling the room with an arrogance that made Ethan's skin crawl. "Ethan, my boy," Carl said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I had the locks changed for security. Old place like that. Anyone could have walked in." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's my house, Carl. You don't get to decide what's secure." Carl chuckled, a low grating sound. "Your house, sure. But Lila's my daughter, and I'm looking out for her. That place is falling apart. I'm just helping you two out." "Stepdaughter," Ethan corrected, his voice sharp. "And we didn't ask for your help." Lila flinched, her eyes darting between them. "Ethan, please. Dad, Carl just wants to make sure the house is safe. He didn't mean any harm." "Didn't mean any harm?" Ethan's voice rose, the hurt bubbling over. "He changed the locks without telling me, Lila. You knew, didn't you? You let him do this." Her silence was answer enough. Ethan's heart sank, a cold, heavy weight settling in his chest. He'd trusted her, built a life with her, shared every piece of himself. But this was a betrayal that cut deeper than he could have imagined. The next few days were a fog of tension. Lila tried to explain, her words a jumble of apologies and excuses. Carl had convinced her the house needed upgrading, that Ethan was too sentimental to see it was a money pit. She'd gone along with it, thinking it would help them in the long run. But Ethan couldn't shake the image of Carl swaggering through his father's house, deciding what was his to change. He started digging, driven by a gnawing suspicion he couldn't ignore. He checked the property records at the county office, his hands shaking as he flipped through the files. His father's name was still on the deed, but there was a new document, a lien Carl had filed, claiming he'd paid for improvements to the property. It was a lie, a power grab dressed up as generosity. Ethan's blood boiled. Carl wasn't just meddling. He was trying to take the house. That night, Ethan confronted Lila in their bedroom, the air thick with unspoken accusations. "Did you know about the lien?" he asked, his voice low, trembling with barely contained anger. Lila's eyes widened, her face paling. "What lien? Don't lie to me, Lila." He stepped closer, searching her face for the truth. "Carl filed a lien on the house. He's claiming he owns part of it because of the work he's done. Did you know?" She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't, Ethan, I swear. He told me he was just fixing things up. I thought he was helping." "Helping?" Ethan laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "He's trying to steal it, Lila. My dad's house. The one thing I have left of him. And you let him in." "I didn't mean to," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought we could fix it up, sell it, start fresh somewhere else. I didn't know he'd go this far." Ethan stared at her, the woman he'd loved for 6 years, the woman he'd vowed to build a future with. But now, all he could see was the distance between them, the trust that had crumbled like the old plaster walls of his father's house. "You didn't know," he repeated, his voice flat. "But you didn't stop him either." The confrontation with Carl came a week later. In the dim light of the house's living room, Ethan had demanded a meeting, his key still useless, his anger a live wire. Carl stood by the fireplace, his arms crossed, his smirk infuriatingly calm. "You've got some nerve, kid," Carl said. "This house is a dump. I'm doing you a favor fixing it up. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" Ethan's voice was a low growl. "You filed a lien. You're trying to take what's mine." Carl shrugged, unperturbed. "Business is business. Lila agreed to the upgrades. You weren't around to make decisions, so I stepped in." "Lila's not on the deed," Ethan snapped. "And neither are you." Carl's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something dangerous passing through them. "Watch yourself, Ethan. You don't want to make this messy." But it was already messy. Ethan turned to Lila, who stood in the doorway, her hands twisted together. "Tell me the truth, Lila. Did you sign anything? Did you give him permission to do this?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Her silence was a knife, twisting deeper with every second. Finally she nodded, a single devastating motion. "I signed a contract for the repairs," she whispered. "I didn't know it would lead to this." Ethan's world tilted. The room spun, the walls of his father's house closing in. He'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd handed Carl the keys to his legacy. The betrayal wasn't just Carl's, it was hers. The fight to reclaim the house took months. Ethan hired a lawyer, draining his savings to dispute the lien. The legal battles were grueling. Each court date a reminder of the trust he'd lost. Lila moved out, her apologies fading into silence. Ethan didn't try to stop her. The house became his anchor, the one thing he could still fight for, even as his marriage crumbled. In the end he won. The lien was struck down, the locks changed back. But standing in the quiet of his father's house, Ethan felt no victory. The rooms were empty, the memories tainted by betrayal. He ran his hand along the blue door, the paint still chipped, still his. But the weight of Lila's choices, of Carl's greed, lingered like a stain. He sat on the porch steps, the key in his hand once more. It fit the lock now, but it couldn't unlock the trust he'd lost. The house was his, but the home, the one built on love, on promises, was gone. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, Ethan let himself cry for the first time, mourning not just his father, but the life he'd thought he'd had.